So basically, you know, with the if this then that, uh, what you want to make sure you do before you do the first action, like if you're going to put a video up and then have that trigger to take that video and post it across all your social media platforms, the tweaking is what you want to do before you post that first video, that whatever it is that's the trigger action.
Right.
Some people have it where they post you know, they just put a post on their WordPress blog and it does all this stuff for them. But whatever it is, whatever you're having it do, that you're automating the follow-up sequence, you want to make sure that that first trigger action has all of your tweaks in it for your SEO, or, you know, whatever you're trying to do, any conversion, anything like that. So like with videos, the best thing that you can do is actually do keyword research to find out what keywords are on YouTube that are being searched for that don't have a lot of competition for.
Right.
And it's fairly easy to do that. You can actually go into YouTube, and when you start typing into the search box, it's going to come up with recommendations, and that's a really good indicator that people are searching for particular things. So if you see stuff in there, and like let's say you see something that's kind of nichey but relevant, and it's got your keywords in it, and it would draw good traffic for you, if you know, click on that search string and you see there's a bunch of videos there and nothing's really relevant, that would be a good title for your video. And before you post it up, you want to make sure you change the file name. Whatever is going to be in your title, that's going to be like your, you know, your main thing.
Right.
So you can change your file name to that, like whatever that string of words is, whatever that phrase is, .mp4. That's going to be the name of your file.
Right. I think that's a must, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you upload that, and then that becomes your title. And then, you know, description, you want to make sure you've got a good description in there. You've got link to the site. You've got you know, link it back to the site where it references, all that stuff. And then the tags, you know, the same thing with the tags. You want to put stuff in the tags that's relevant. And another thing too, Google rewards people for putting video up that keeps people on YouTube longer. And this is one of the things in their SEO, that they reward people, and inside YouTube, it's part of the YouTube SEO algorithm. Because, you know, if you don't realize, YouTube is a search engine. It's one of the biggest search engines around. It's just a different type of search engine. People go there to search for video content. But it is a search engine. I mean, it's run by Google. It's got a lot of the same algorithmic you know, factors that Google does. So keep that in mind when you're trying to, you know, optimize your videos to put up there. So a little trick with that of how to keep people on there so you can get that reward for keeping people on YouTube is to put your stuff into playlists. So when they play your video, it automatically plays your next video. Because a lot of times, you know, if it gets to the end and you don't have another video, it's going to play, you know, something else, or it's just going to stop, or, you know, something like that. So if you can play related videos one after another in a playlist, that's a really good trick to do. Another thing, just to be more searchable and be found for more, and actually have your video display at, you know, in other places, is a couple of things. When you tie your video, like let's say you see somebody that is doing video marketing and they're pretty sharp at it, and they put a bogus keyword in there. The reason that you would do that, you know, the whole reasoning behind that is to put a unique thing that no one else has. So when your video plays, it will reference any other site that's got the same type of stuff. So if it sees you've got this unique thing, a unique keyword, and it goes to look for other videos to recommend and things, it's going to see that you've got other videos that have that unique keyword in them, and no other videos on YouTube does. So it's going to be much more likely that it displays your videos as the recommended videos right next to the video they just watched. So that's something to kind of keep in mind.
Right. I use TubeBuddy,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
and I actually like YouTube auto suggest better than I like Google auto suggest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That auto suggests. That's where you start typing in, and it starts dropping down recommendations.
Right.
So that's a really good way to do keyword research, by the way. That was what I was kind of mentioning in the beginning there. That's a pretty cool way to go about that.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I've had a couple of requests here in the last week or so about the big idea. And this really is important. Whether it doesn't really matter what you're doing. This is a really crucial conversion factor, which is really important, whether it be to marketing or to traffic or SEO or anything. The conversion factor is probably the most important thing of all of your marketing. If you're unable to convert, the rest of it really doesn't add up to a hill of beans. So in order to convert, you've got to really be able to stand out. And I know a lot of people have talked about this, over the years, the whole thing about you got to be different, you got to stand out. But the thing behind that is, how do you do that? If you're selling a commodity and you've got the same stuff, and the thing that you're selling, whatever it may be, if it's the same thing as everyone else's, then you just have a commodity. So how do you stand out in that crowd? How do you disrupt that? And that's where the big idea comes in. So in coming up with this, there's a couple of key components about a big idea that I talked about last week, but there's a couple more that layer on top of that to really tie it all together. The first thing about having a big idea that's going to really draw people in and set you apart as being different is the fact that, and these aren't the things that are going to actually make it different. The two that I'm going to give you today are the things that are going to be the big difference. But underlying, the underlying part of this is the factors that you've got to have is, first of all, you've got to have something that is going to deliver their desired outcome. If you've got that, then you've got a key component in the big idea, because you've got to address what it is they want. As soon as you start talking about features and yourself and all of that, you lose it. That's not part of a big idea. No one cares. People only care about themselves. They care about what they want. They care about their own outcome. So a big idea has to be heavily entwined in what they want, their desired outcome, whatever that may be. So keep that as a baseline. You've got to wrap it around that. That goes back to your analysis, figuring out what it is they really want and really digging into that, figuring out why they want it. The whole why they want it might be more important than the what they want. So keep that in mind when you're kind of coming up with your big ideas. The other thing is, what is it that's preventing them from getting that desired outcome? Those are kind of the two things. If you can figure out what's getting in their way, what they want, and what's keeping them from it, you can much more easily create a big idea. And the big idea really becomes the front end of your marketing program. That's your hook. That's what grabs their attention. That's what pulls them in. That's what draws them into your marketing message. If you can't get them to consume the marketing message, you'll never convert. And if you don't convert, you really don't have a business. You've got to be able to not only grab their attention, but draw them through the marketing message. So what we're talking about is the big idea out on the front end of all of this, of how you grab their attention, how you get them to consume your marketing message. So the two things last week I didn't mention, I didn't discuss, I didn't get into, was the fact that you've got to pull on the emotions. It's got to be emotionally compelling. This is where it really ties into that, what they want. But you've got to put it across and get them emotional about it. And a lot of times what you do is you don't, you go for the throat, you go for the thing of why they want it. If you get to the why they want it, you're going to tap into their emotions. So that's the hard part, that everybody comes up with the superficial things. They come up with the superficial whys. But if you can really tap in and get something that's emotionally compelling, then you're going to have another key component to that big idea. Another thing is, and this comes to the part about what makes you different. Especially a lot of us sell stuff that there's a lot of competition for. A lot of us, some of you guys are speakers, and you're speaking about things that there's 50 other speakers speaking about the same thing. Yeah, you've got a different twist on it, but from a standpoint of your audience and your customers, they're going to need to know what's different about you. What is that thing that's different? And that's where the interest comes in. You've got to make what you're doing interesting. You've got to evoke that curiosity and say things in a different way. We all deliver the same stuff, but we've got to come across, in a different way. When you do that, when you repackage and you have a unique delivery system, we call the unique mechanism. That's the thing that delivers the result. When you have something that is different and unique, even though it's the same, you might just call it a different name, but it's a name that no one's heard before. It's like the Garcinia cambogia to the diet pill. Everybody had diet pills. They became a commodity. The first guy to say, hey, ours has Garcinia cambogia, and this is why this pill is going to work for you, they created a marketing landslide. The truth of the matter was all the pills had it. That was the active ingredient in all the diet pills. But the first marketer that actually said our pill has Garcinia cambogia, and they put a whole marketing ploy around that, they sold those pills like crazy. And it grabbed everyone's attention. They're like, what's that Garcinia cambogia? It had that curiosity factor. It also had the emotion of, this is actually going to get me what I want. This is going to actually take the pounds off and get me to the desired outcome that I'm after. So that's what you need to do. You need to tie all this stuff in. You've got to be different, and that's how you do it with this big idea. And like I said, it's a simple concept that's very hard to implement. It's an easy system. It's an easy thing to say, hey, I need a big idea that brings across, and big idea really, it equates into a headline. This is like the headline for your marketing campaign. This is like the headline to your Facebook ads. All of that stuff ties into, some people call it the hook. We refer to it as the hook. What's going to hook them in and get them in? What's going to get them to your opt-in page? What's going to get them to opt in? That's what you see when you see all these things. And I'll give you a really good example of a bad one that turned into a really good one. And I use it in the ACT program. It's in the training. And it's the one that has to do with the book written about outsourcing. It's called Outsource Your Life. And it's a book about outsourcing. There's 500 other books, maybe not 500, but there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of books about outsourcing. There's a bunch of training programs about outsourcing. So outsourcing literally became a commodity. So the guy that came out with the book, Outsource Your Life, I think that was the name of it. It was something basic like that. It had to do with outsourcing. But he didn't stand out. The book was looked at as the same as the 50 others right side by side with it, and everyone had already heard it. They heard how great it was. Nobody believed it. Nobody did it. It didn't work. You know, just like the diet pill, same thing. You buy 10 of them, you get the idea, hey, this stuff doesn't work. So if you're going to sell it into the market, you're going to sell people that have had less than stellar experiences with the same stuff that you sell, which a lot of us are in that boat. I mean, for me, I've sold SEO services for over 20 years, and believe me, there's a lot of people that have been burned by that. So you've got to come across as different. You've got to see, you've got to let them see why you're different and why you're going to work. You're going to be the one for them. So anyway, the outsourcing book, Outsource Your Life, didn't work, didn't sell. It was an absolute bomb. They changed the name of it, and it sold millions of copies. And really what it came down to was they figured out what the big idea behind it was. And for those of you that don't know the story, it's the 4-Hour Work Week. It's the same book. The inside didn't change. They just changed the cover and the name. But they attached it to a big idea that was both interesting, and it grabbed a hold of your emotion. What do we all want? The 4-Hour Work Week. That's the dream, right? As an entrepreneur, absolutely. We want to work 4 hours and we want to get paid full time, right? That's the big idea behind a commodity that was in a space that was completely pummeled and unsellable. So that's what you need to do. You need to come up with what is that big idea for what you do that's going to make you different. It's going to attach itself to what they really want. You know, like the 4-Hour Work Week. That's saying what they want in a very different way that people had not heard before. It's almost become a staple for us because it grabbed hold so well. But it all ties back to Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Work Week book. You know, that was his big idea. So, you know, we all know that. So you need to come up with a different one. You can't just steal his. And the whole emotionally compelling thing, sometimes you tie things to different stuff that is completely off the wall in some cases. Like I'm working on one right now for the ACT marketing, and I'm kind of tying it to the idea about hit songs, about musicians, and the idea behind it is getting the message right. You know, the whole thing with ACT is getting your message right. Now, that has been said by many people over and over and over throughout all marketing. So if I come out and I talk about getting the message right, I'm going to become a commodity just like the outsourcing book. I don't want to do that. So somehow I've got to tie that message to something else, and you know, something emotionally emotionally compelling and interesting would be tying it to somebody that was a musician, that was a failed musician. This intellectually is tying to failed entrepreneur. And basically, they changed their messaging and they were one hit away from becoming a rock star. And I use the example of Elvis Presley. You know, he was doing something that everyone else was doing that his audience didn't like. His message was wrong. You know, it was wrong for his audience. You know, he had a message that in his music, which they didn't want. They wanted something wild and crazy that had never been seen before. And as soon as he did that, he became the king of rock and roll. So it's all about, like, I'm tying it back to my big idea there is it's all about messaging, and you're only one hit away from truly changing your life, which is what everybody wants. You know, they want that one marketing campaign that will literally change their life forever. You know, the one that automates their income, the one that finally allows them to get and acquire all the customers they would ever want. and to grow and scale their business like they've never been able to do it before. So for me, the big idea in that particular marketing campaign, that's really it. That's what they want. They want those things. They want to be able to scale. They want to be able to acquire customers. They want to change their life forever. They want to automate things. So that's what's behind it. That's the driving thing. And I'm connecting it to the whole, musician thing and the message. So I'm saying it in a very different way. I'm coming across in a very different way. And that's what will spark people's curiosity. They'll say, what is that? I'll call it the Elvis shift. That's one of the things I'll call it. I'll say, the Elvis shift is what Elvis did to take him from a failure to the king of rock and roll. And you can do that in your marketing. You can do this in your own business. That's intellectually interesting. That evokes curiosity. People are going to want to know, what's this Elvis shift and how do I use it? The reality is it's just like the outsourcing book. It's the same thing. I'm discussing getting your marketing message right, but I've packaged it inside of a big idea that's going to set me apart. So hopefully that's coming across and really resonating with you guys, because it's like I said, a big idea is a simple thing, but it's very difficult to actually come up with. It takes a lot of creativity. I don't know if most people's heads operate like mine, but I do my best before I go to sleep at night. I kind of clear my head. I write down stuff of, I unload everything that would be drawing on me while I'm sleeping. And I ask myself one question right before I go to bed and go to sleep. I ask myself one question. And a lot of times it's related to, something I'm trying to solve. Like, what would be my big idea, or what headline would I write if this were my big idea? And it's the weirdest thing. I wake up with the answer. It's really crazy because I get the junk out of my head and I start that loop before I go to bed. And it's like it works all night to figure it out. It's really kind of crazy. And like I said, I don't know that everyone else, works that way, but that's really what I do in a lot of cases. But you've got to get really creative with this, and it is so important. It's the first part of creation. Once you've got the analysis, and a lot of the big time marketers, the guys from the 50s, the guys out of ad agencies, one of the things that they say repeatedly about this is the big idea is the foundation of any successful marketing campaign. And that's the reason why. It's the thing that's going to set you apart. It's the thing that's going to grab people and draw them in. And it's really the beginning of any successful marketing campaign. Because like I said, if you can't get them to consume your message, you're never going to convert them. You could have the best offer in the world. You could have the best product in the world. You could have the best webinar, the best educational marketing series. You could have everything right. But if you can't get them in the front, if you can't get them to consume that and get to your offer, then you'll never convert. And conversion really is the name of the game. So there's a lot of pieces in place that you've got to have to get that conversion. But this is the beginning of it. This is the lead in. Without getting them in here, without grabbing their attention, it's kind of game over before you even started. So if you guys have questions about that, let me know. Go ahead and unmute. Just, come out and ask any questions that you may have.
Hey, John.
Hey, Mary Sue, how's it going?
Okay. So I was just thinking, and it's occurred to me a number of times recently as I see the different marketing programs out there. So Todd Brown is in the midst of selling his big program. And it started with the ClickFunnels stuff, which, they talked about it a lot at the ClickFunnels conference. But every time I read, you know, what they're doing and how they're doing it, I think of the ACT program, because it's all, they don't say that, but it's all based on that as a foundation. So what Todd's thing does is, the goal is to walk you step by step through how to find your big idea, right?
Oh, okay.
And so it seems to me that that is a natural part of the ACT program. We're already there. We're
Yep.
already looking at the stuff. So the question is, how do you expand on what you already know and get to the final end? Because I mean, his program is like $2,000.
Yes.
And it seems to me like, why in the world not get $2,000 more value out of something that we've already put the work into?
Absolutely.
But clearly, that's where we're at.
Yeah, and Todd's program, he's got the E5 camp.
That's the one he's selling now.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a great program, but it is advanced. It's assuming that you're on a much higher plane and a much higher level. And I know he comes across and says that's not true, but it kind of is. You know, I've actually been through it. I was one of the beta people that went through it, you know, in the very beginning. And it has a lot of gaps. You know, it doesn't start with segmentation to begin with. It goes into avatar creation much too soon. And, you know, although it's got a lot of really great stuff, it's not, I don't really think it's a program for somebody that's just starting out. If you're trying to sharpen your sword, he's got a lot of really, really good stuff. He's a great marketer for sure, no doubt about it. And he's got some great lessons in there. But, you know, one of the biggest problems that we had with people going through the ACT program was I had to go back to the beginning and really start at the basics to, you know, to walk you guys through the whole process from beginning to end. And his does not do that. It's like you're out in the deep water and you swim or you get left behind. So, but
especially with our with the different meetings and stuff, okay, that we've gotten. Maybe I'm, you know, bringing this up in the wrong program, but it seems to me like we ought to be able to get there with this. We ought to be able to cover all of these things and fill in all the gaps that other people leave out, because I feel like we've got the secret sauce. Now we just need to find out the things that we want to pour the secret sauce over, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the thing where I say, you know, the big idea is an easy thing that's hard to implement, and the reason it's hard is the creativity part. This is the part that our brains don't normally work this way. You know, our brains always go to features and benefits. And that's what everybody does. And that's why if you don't have a big idea, you're going to become a commodity, because you're going to be just like everybody else that's talking about features and benefits. And for some reason, that's just the way our brains are naturally wired. It's not like, you know, none of us are messed up. We don't need, you know, psychological help or anything. It's just natural the way we are. We're wired to talk about what's important to us. And in marketing, you've got to reverse that. You've got to talk about what's important to them, and you've got to separate yourself away from being looked at as a commodity. And that's the big thing about that, is the big idea is what does that. That's the thing about your marketing campaign that's going to, right in the beginning, it's like the first thing they see, because the big idea relates to your hook and your headlines, your ads, all that stuff. It's what's going to draw them in. And, you know, there's not really a formula for, like, you know, Frank Kern came up with a formula of, here's what I've got, here's what it'll do for you, here's what I want you to do next. That's not really a big idea. That's more of a call to action after your big idea is in place and you've got people sucked into your message. You know, but if you hit those key components, you know, those are the most important things. focusing on what they really want, what their desired outcome is, and figure out what the emotional attachment to that is. So you can make the big idea really emotional. You can make them feel it. That's one thing. The other thing about it is figuring out what is it that is preventing them from getting that desired outcome. And how does your thing, whatever that may be, eliminate that hurdle and actually deliver the result? You know, that's really what we're trying to tie a big idea around that, and we're trying to make it both different, which is the intellectually interesting part. It evokes curiosity. In NLP, it's called a pattern interrupt. It's like when you're in the middle of a bunch of noise and people start to drift, which that's what's happening when you're a commodity and everyone has the same thing and they're all saying the same, they're making the same promise, they're saying the same things. People start to not pay attention. It's like, yeah, okay, there's another red car, another red car, another red car. They're all red cars. Who cares? But then one comes through and it's got chrome on it. And all of a sudden, that's a pattern interrupt. They look and say, oh, wow, that one's really cool. Oh, and it's got tinted windows. And you know, that's what you got to do. You've got to do that pattern interrupt about grabbing their attention and breaking that monotonous, this is all the same stuff. Because, you know, I know you guys have heard it too. You go to seminars, you hear pitches, and we're hearing the same stuff. What makes us buy things is when we hear it in a different way, even though it's the same thing. That's what you got to do. You got to figure out, how do you come across with that? You know, and that, like I said, the best example that I know of right off the top of my head is Tim Ferriss, you know, with the 4-Hour Work Week. That was a great big idea for a book that was just about outsourcing. You know, everybody was talking outsourcing. Everybody was making the same claims, the same pitch, the same features, the same benefits, all of that stuff. And, you know, he came up with a big idea of what was different, because the first one was a failure. Nobody wanted it. They'd all heard it before. They didn't believe it. They didn't buy it. They didn't, you know, it was just a commodity and a bunch of noise. So when he made that shift, changed it to the 4-Hour Work Week, all of a sudden now that has all the components I'm talking about. It's a pattern interrupt. It's like 4-Hour Work Week. That's interesting. That evokes my curiosity. I'm interested in that. I want to know more about that. That's a hook that literally will draw me in. I've never heard that before. 4-Hour Work Week. It grabs my emotion, because as an entrepreneur, that's exactly what I want. You know, everyone else is saying grow your business. Well, I've heard that. You know, I don't believe that anymore. But when I hear the 4-Hour Work Week, here's a recipe for how I can have a 4-Hour Work Week. Isn't that what we all want? We want to work 4 hours and get full-time paid for it. So that is emotional. That grabs an emotional draw. So that's a really good example of what a big idea is. It takes the normal, the ordinary, and it does a pattern interrupt. It grabs your curiosity, and it does everything I'm talking about. So it's a perfect example of that. You know, a lot of you guys are in Craig's deal. You know, Craig talks about this all the time. His big idea was the whole thing about rockstar marketing. You know, he's just sent out another thing about where he started, and it was, you know, grow your business on a shoestring budget. You know, and it was a failure. Nobody wanted it. But as soon as he put it, he just did the switch. He did exactly what Tim Ferriss did. He switched his message to become a rock star marketer and be the rock star in your industry. And that was a different thing. No one was saying that. You know, that was a great big idea for Craig. And it worked. Look at what it did. You know, he's created a great business around that big idea. It's the same stuff. You know, it's just like Tim Ferriss. You know, Tim Ferriss was selling outsourcing. You know, Craig is selling marketing tips. It's the same thing. He's repackaged it. Nobody wants to buy marketing tips. No one would go to that seminar. But when he repackages it, and he's doing it under the Rockstar brand, he's got a big idea that is emotional to what everybody wants. Everybody wants to be a rock star, right? They want to be a rock star in their business. It's perfect. You know, he has done a phenomenal job at creating a big idea that has worked very well for him. So when you guys can do that, when you come up with that big idea, that will literally change your business. That will change it forever. It's like, you know, me tying it into Elvis, and you're one hit away from changing your life. Elvis had the wrong message. You know, Elvis was a failed musician. He changed his message. He got his big idea right, and he became the king of rock and roll. We still know him today as the king of rock and roll because he made a simple shift in his message. He changed. He realized what his audience wanted, and he delivered it. It was just a shift in message. So that was what I was talking about. I'm actually working on a big idea for ACT that relates to that. You know, because ACT is all about the message, right? Well, everyone's heard that before. I've said it over and over and over. We've all heard it. So I have to come up with, I'm in the same spot that Craig was in, you know, with his shoestring marketing. I've got it, you know, what is the big idea? So I'm considering the idea of tying it to your one hit away, and then using Elvis and tying it to that. You know, because it's all about the message, and Elvis was all about the message. So anyway, I'll let you guys see. I'm working on the copy and the headlines and all that for it. I'll let you guys see so you can see how I went from where I was to where I am, and it hopefully will help you to do the same thing, because we're all suffering from the same problem. We're all suffering from the noise and minutia in the market of everyone selling the same thing, everyone making the same promises. And it's the big idea that is going to be the difference. That's the thing that's going to get people to consume your marketing message. Because, you know, you could have a great game plan, you could have a great product, you could have a great sales letter, you could have a great call to action, you could have a great offer. Everything on the back end could be perfect. But if you can't get them in, if you can't grab their attention and break that pattern interrupt and get them to consume that marketing message, you'll never get them to the end. You'll never get to convert. So that's the whole premise around the big idea and why it's so important. And that's why, and it's the first piece of creation too. So that tells you why analysis is so important. I guarantee you there's no way that you're ever going to come up with a big idea that lands and sticks and is really good without understanding your market, without understanding who your avatar really is, what's important to them, what's going to be emotionally interesting or emotionally compelling to them, what's going to be interesting to them, all that stuff. You know, like if I was after millennials, Elvis wouldn't do it because they don't know, they don't care. It's like, Elvis, yeah, right. But I'm not after millennials. So Elvis, to my market, you guys all know Elvis, right? So it's really important to really do that analysis. That analysis is the foundation of everything. And, you know, some of these guys, the guys back in the 50s, that really kind of were the first ones to really start talking about what they were doing. This stuff's been going on for hundreds of years. I mean, I've tracked it back to Benjamin Franklin. But in the 50s, it really started getting talked about, you know, in ad agencies. Ad agencies became like the thing, and it started getting talked about. And people started identifying formulas. And that's where the big idea really started being publicly discussed. And not publicly, I mean inside ad agencies. You know, and they talked about how important that was and how that was really the key to any ad campaign. And they couldn't do that without the research. They always base the big idea creation on the research. So, the system, the whole ACT system, it goes way back. This is not something new. This has been working for a long time, a very long time. And it's really, it works. Ad agencies depend on the system to deliver results. So that's a pretty good indicator that if they depend on it to deliver results to their clients, it's a pretty good indicator that it's what you should be depending on to deliver the results in your own business. It's like if you're not doing that, you're really fighting an uphill battle. You're off in uncharted waters, and you don't know where you're going, and you don't know how you're going to get there. And usually that doesn't wind up too well. So, all right. So open for questions. You guys come on out and tell me where you're experiencing trouble, what you think, if you've got, comments, questions about this. This was pretty heavy on the big idea, which I've gotten several questions over the last week about that. So I thought that was important enough to really address and see if I could make that clear. Oh, if you guys don't have questions, I want to make you aware of something, a new product I just purchased. Absolutely phenomenal. It blows ClickFunnels out of the water by a long shot. It's called Kartra, and it's by Andy Jenkins and Mike Filsame are the main characters behind it. They're the ones that do EverWebinar. They do the Evergreen webinars. They're behind Webinar Jam. These guys have been around. They've been creating great products for a very long time, and they're involved. They're part of the big, the big group of internet marketers that it's almost like they referred to themselves as the syndicate at one time. It's like the internet mafia. And Frank Kern's part of the group, Ryan Dice, all the big guys, they all kind of clan together. Well, what they've done is they've looked at, no one has ever really liked Infusionsoft. They loved what it did. They loved the idea of it, but it just was not implementable for a normal person. It just wasn't. It's just not. It's crazy the amount of technical knowledge you have to even consider working with that program. I mean, I've tried it myself. I've been through it. I've been through their training, all this stuff, and I'm like, this is not intuitive. It doesn't make sense. It's a pain in the ass. Why would anyone have to go to these lengths to get simple things done like what you have to do inside there? So they've never liked that. They only liked like the outcome of it. If you hired a professional and you spent a ton of money and they got it programmed, it works great if that's the case. But you want to make a simple change, you got to have a programming team to do it. It's a nightmare. So they didn't like that. They loved the idea of ClickFunnels. They loved lead pages. Ryan Dice made a company called Lead Pages, or actually bought it. He bought a really cool program, and it was a program that created landing pages, made it easy, drag and drop to create the program. Problem was it didn't have an autoresponder in it. Problem was it didn't have any automation in it. And that's kind of the same thing with ClickFunnels. ClickFunnels, you have to buy the high-end product to get a really a minimal functioning autoresponder mail system and an affiliate program that's less than stellar, and and a few other things. So anyway, what they did with Kartra was they took all of the bad, all of the evil, and they eliminated it. They put it into one program that is a shopping cart. It's a landing page builder. It's a ClickFunnels that's got everything built right into it, including all of the automation and the analysis and the reporting. And it is, I was kind of leery. I'm kind of skeptical. I really don't like to use third-party shopping carts that are cloud-based. I love to own the software. I love to have it run on my servers. I've been that guy for over 20 years. And, you know, I know Mike. I talked to Mike. He told me, you need to be using this. You need to throw ClickFunnels out the window. And he said, you need to be training your people on this that are going through your ACT program. And I'm like, well, for me to do that, I need to do it myself first, because I'm not, you know, people are so used to ClickFunnels. And I know the problems. I know a lot of you guys have gotten into ClickFunnels, and it's not as easy as you had thought or you would like. And I found the same thing. It's not intuitive how you have to connect all the stuff. It's kind of counterproductive to have to buy all these systems and stitch them together and hope they all work together. And that's exactly what you get with ClickFunnels or Infusionsoft or any of these programs. It's a handful of pieces that you need to put together to get anything to really work. Now, when Mike was telling me about the Kartra software, I'm like, he has just listed off everything under the sun, all under one hood and one program for one price, and it all works together. And I'm like, if that's true, I'm about to fall in love. and I got to tell you, I've had it for about less than a week, and already I've almost got it completely configured, ready to go with my first marketing campaign. It does membership sites. I could literally run the ACT membership site out of the same software that's taking the orders and doing the marketing up front. I can run the affiliate program on one control panel. I can look at it. Will, here's the other really cool thing that I've never had access to, because I've never been able to actually implement a software like Infusionsoft. But if someone comes into the marketing funnel, it will actually tag them, and if they make a purchase, it will put a new tag on them, so it removes them out of the marketing system. That way you don't make the mistake that I've made in the past of continuing to market it to somebody that's already ordered with a better deal, and then they come back and they want the discount after they've ordered. I have had that cost me a ton of money in the past from doing that. And this eliminates that. It allows you as much automation as you want. It'll put timers in, like if you're having offers that expire in a certain amount of time, the timer starts when the person comes into the marketing campaign. So if you want to give them 7 days to make a decision, if somebody comes in on Tuesday, their 7 days is going to be up next Tuesday. You know, if somebody comes in on Wednesday, theirs is going to be up on Wednesday. It's all completely automated. It is, everyone that comes through can get the same experience. And when they make actions, it will actually update what's going to happen in the marketing sequence. Like, let's say you send out an email. You can send out an email. The system knows if the email got opened. If it doesn't, it'll send another one. If it got open, it won't. If there's a video inside the email, they open the email, they didn't watch the video, it's going to send another email. It's going to say, hey, we saw you didn't watch the video. It's really important that you watch it. I mean, how powerful and cool is that? It knows what the user did because all the analytics are in it. It's all one unit, all working together. It's really, really cool. So I am really, really liking it. I'm considering, you know, shifting over everything to it. It's even got its own help desk built in. I mean, it's got everything you want. It does your email for you. It does your help desk for you. It'll do your membership sites for you. It'll do all the access, all the billing, recurring billing. You can do, I mean, all the stuff that I just love. To be able to have the flexibility of, let's say you want to sell a product for one price and then you want to follow up. Like I do this all the time with my memberships. I'll sell access to the membership for one price and then it rolls into a recurring for support. Like you guys are on my support system. $29 a month, you get access to me every week. You know, that's a great system. I love that model, and it supports that type of billing. There hasn't been very many softwares out there that I've seen that support that type of billing. Yeah, Michelle, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm on their site, and because I got a chance to try HubSpot for a year, and I really loved that it was a little bit more user-friendly, intuitive. But when my trial period ended, the price went so high I couldn't afford it because I'm a startup. So now I'm piecing things together through different apps, and it's just frustrating.
Yeah.
What is the monthly fee here with this software?
They have different levels. I think their starter level is like $89 a month. And then they've got, I think, 5 different levels, and basically it depends on how much use you're using it. It's like how many leads you've got, how many emails you can send, how many gigs of video. They host your videos for you too. It's a video hosting service as well. So if you're paying for Wistia, you can drop Wistia. If you're paying for an autoresponder, you can drop that. If you're paying for ClickFunnels, you can drop that. It's like, for me, the level I went, I think I did the silver package, and I'm paying $149 a month. And when I look at, I can drop Wistia, that's $129 a month. I can drop ClickFunnels, that's $99 a month. I'm already money ahead just with those two.
The other thing is email. I'm assuming a lot of these email platforms, like I use Aweber, and a lot of times it still ends up in the promotions tab on the Gmail platform because it's detecting that it's coming from
Aweber.
Yeah, from a service like Aweber. And so I'm just curious if they have seemed to find a way to overcome that issue as well. I know.
Because, well, one thing I can tell you is Andy Jenkins and Frank Kern, they are big time mailers, and they have been for the last 15 years. So if anybody is going to figure that stuff out and not have that be a problem, those guys are the ones to rely on.
Well, this is exciting that there's something that's coming out that gives ClickFunnels and even HubSpot a run for their money, and all under one hood, because that's a dream. That's a dream scenario right there.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I you know me, I've heard every pitch under the sun, and when I heard that, I'm like, yeah. Somebody was telling me about it, and they're like, you need to talk to Mike. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And somebody, you know, had reached out to Mike Filsame, and he actually called me. Mike Filsame called me on my cell phone to tell me that it was all real. And I'm like, he said, he goes, I can understand your hesitation. He goes, it does sound too good to be true, but he says, I want you to try it, because you've got to try it.
Yeah, because I mean, by the time you invest all your energy to move everything over to a platform, you definitely need to know that it's going to do everything you need it to do, and not.
Oh yeah.
That's frustrating.
Yeah, so I'm playing around with it right now. The other really cool thing it's got is Frank Kern has about 4 common funnels that he uses in his business. He uses the 4-day cash machine for sales, which is a 4-day timer to generate sales. He uses well, there's 4 different ones, different sequences, sales sequences. And what he's done is he has supplied those built into the system under the Done For You tab. So if you want that, like let's say you want to run a 4-day cash machine, once you get your cartridge set up and you've got your payment gateways and you've got your email and you've got everything all set up, you click on the Done For You campaign, and it will import the entire campaign in for you. And all you have to do is just go in and tweak the emails to be yours, because he's written all the converting copy. He's written it, and it works. It's worked for him for a long time. So all you'd have to do is just go in and adjust that. You know, you've got the landing pages, you've got the opt-ins. You just change his offer out for yours, and you've got something that's pretty well proven to work. It's like, it is literally, it takes a lot to really blow my mind, because I have seen everything. I've been in this since before any of these guys, and I've seen them all evolve. And you know, I've heard all the promises. I've bought all the shit. It's just like this one, they really hit the nail on the head.
Does it have a shopping cart?
Yeah, it is a shopping cart.
It is its own shopping cart. You don't have to have a third-party shopping cart.
No, and it takes the real gateways, like the real business gateway.
Authorized.net and all that.
Yeah, authorized net, already in it, already ready to go, and it's the other thing that literally really blew my mind was it already has integration for a member. Like I've used a member for the last 12 years to run my membership sites. And if I want to use a member, it seamlessly connects to a member. So it can do the marketing on the front end for a member.
Cool.
And then pass the order right through to a member, and then a member takes over and does everything while Kartra is still doing the billing for a member. That blew my mind.
Wow, that is nice.
The fact that they had got that in already for the launch of it literally blew my mind.
They've been watching and paying attention to people's pain points, John.
They have, yeah. No, really. This thing is, I don't know. I usually don't talk this highly about any program, but every time I get into it, every time I take another step in it, it just keeps getting better. I haven't found anything yet I don't like about it.
Keep us posted, please. That's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah, and the fact that it is so easy, you don't have to know how to do all these sequences and stuff. I mean, it's like you say, I want to add an automation action, and it'll drop down all the lists of all the stuff you could do. You know, you don't have to think about it. It'll already tell you what you can do. And if you decide that's what you want, you just click it and it's done.
Very nice.
And it gives you a map. It creates a blueprint as you're doing it, so you can actually see your marketing campaign as you're building it.
I know, like when I was under HubSpot, they recommended I convert my site over to HubSpot, which did, you know, because we were using WordPress.
Yeah.
And then when we did that, then their language wasn't as sophisticated as WordPress, so we were limited. Does this one work with WordPress seamlessly, or are you expected to convert your whole site over to their platform?
No, you can use either one. In fact, they've got Java code. One of the things I set up yesterday was the help desk, and they said, "Do you want to use your own site or do you want to use ours?" I said, "Well, I want to use my own." So when I clicked the "I want to use my own site" button, it spit out a piece of Java code and it says, "Pop this on your site." I popped it on the site and the help desk button showed up. When you click it, it moves my site over and opens the help desk window.
Cool.
All within my site. And it's like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Cool. That's exciting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's really cool. So hopefully, I know Craig's got his mastermind thing, I think not next week, the week after. Hopefully he'll let me talk about that, because it really is. I mean, for everybody, I know you guys see me as being very technical, but I'm really not. I know how to do certain stuff, but I work in a point and click world. I am not a coder. So I'm very excited about this, and pretty cool stuff. So, all right, last chance here. Anybody else got anything before we wrap up? All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for being on. Thanks for your questions and support. And let me know if there's anything between now and next week, and we'll see you then.
Bye, John.
See you later.